everyone. Well, this is a slightly different video again. It is mainly a video made up of photographs and a small section of screen recording. So the brief for this commission was a large panel, which is to be inserted above a front door of a house. I was sent the dimensions of the glass and the artwork. So this is very specifically what I had to stick to, very rigidly. It's quite clear, so there's no problem there. And as I don't work on toughened glass, I had to suggest that I work on laminated glass. So 6x4mm laminate is what I ordered to the size. And they don't make the ground edges with laminate, or they don't certainly bevel them or anything like that with laminate glass. So that didn't matter because it was going to be within a kind of a frame anyway. So I just had to be careful not to hurt myself with the sharp edges. This is the correct side of the coat of arms, which will be facing outwards. The engraving I will do on the inside, and therefore I will be engraving this mirror image. That is very important. You don't want the wind and the rain and sort of the smog to get into the engraving. You want it nice and cozy on the inside of the house. Obviously this is in color, and so I have got several shades that I've got to work with. I will not be working in color. Obviously I'm just engraving this, and my choice of engraving techniques is sandblasting and hand engraving. It was requested by the client that the name of the coat of arms was omitted from the image. As the image is in a variety of colors, my first thought is I want to see it in grayscale so that I can get an idea of how I'm going to tackle the process of engraving this. So this is obviously the image now converted to grayscale. It's quite interesting how blues and reds, grayscale will tell you whether one is darker than the other, and it may not be quite as obvious when they are actual colors. But this is very clear to me what I have to do. The main drawing program that I use is CorelDRAW, and I keep this regularly right up to date, and this is CorelDRAW 2022 that I'm using at the moment. You can see my work space for this project has been very, very busy. I'm going to show you, well, as you can see, the screen is moving along nicely. I've got the grayscale image in the middle of it. And I'm going to demonstrate very, very simply how I have created this little drawing. It's almost like a cartoon, really. Well, it is a cartoon of the edge of this coat of arms. Now, you can see how amazing this program is and how I can manipulate it and create whatever I want. It's like my magic wand. So I draw every single aspect, and you can see how easy I can change the shape, the colors, the outlines. I can do all sorts of things with it, it's incredibly useful, because all I'm wanting to do first of all is create a basic sandblasted shape of the entire coat of arms. And then once I've done that, I will be able to hand engrave everything that I feel I need to do to bring this to life, the shading, textures, anything that I can do to make it show up and be 3D and interesting, and bearing in mind it has to be viewed from quite far. These simple lines are creating the detail of the tassel, if you like. And as you can see, just like the shapes, I can change these lines to however I want them, so very easily. So every single part of the entire coat of arms will be dealt with initially in this way. So I have made them white because obviously I am creating a negative of what I want. So I could have created a gap so that there was no black, but it's sometimes easier just to create these little white lines instead. And you get used to it. There's so many ways you can go about it, and I will demonstrate to you in a moment how it will look. It's a way of just double checking that your negative positive work is going to be correct. So here I've got basically the negative of this cartoon tassel. I'm creating a black box, which is going to be the basic glass, the blank glass, which you think of as black. And then now I'm going to turn it into the positive that you will see once it's engraved. So the black will be white and the white will be black. So this is what I'm going to quickly show you. Doesn't look like much at the moment, but it will all come clear. So transferring that across to my blank glass. Oops. Let me just adjust that top bit a little bit. There you can see there is my positive engraving of the little tassel. Clearly I have got to fix up the little bottom area of it. It needs to be a bit more rounded, and I will do that certainly in the main drawing. But the fact is that any little discrepancy like that you can fix by hand when you get to the hand engraving stage. The making of the stickers, which I call stickers, they are the masks, which I use an APM Plus film for. You will find the process in another video. I have a very simplified video of that, but I will not be covering the actual making of the masks in this video. So here you can see a very important stage, and that is to make sure that the positioning is 100% perfect on the glass, and also to make sure that the glass is facing the right way. I know it looks the same from both sides, but up in the corner there's a tiny little mark to say that it is laminate glass, and therefore I wanted that to be in the right place. It is also etched on in mirror image and therefore viewed correctly from the outside, so that I laid down in the correct position first. Now I wonder how many of you spotted the mistake. Well, it's not a mistake really. I had just printed out the coat of arms the wrong way round, and of course once I got hold of my masks I realized that the printout I had done was not the right way round. Yes, how many of you noticed? Because the way it is facing, as we're looking at it now, is actually the correct way, and therefore incorrect for engraving, because I have to engrave mirror image. But don't worry, All my artwork was mirror image, and so my masks were made correct. You will notice also that part of the image is missing from the side, and that's because I was limited to A4 size piece of paper. So I had 2 A4 pieces of paper, one on top of the other. And then when I put the image under the glass, the mask will stick on top as long as it is in line with at least part of the image. The rest will lay perfectly in place. Well, you can see there are a number of different areas that I have made masks for separately. And this is because I am limited to the size in which I can create a mask. It would be a lot easier to make one very large mask, but never mind, I make do quite well. So you may be looking at the pictures on the masks right now and wondering, so why is the helmet once again facing the other way on the mask? Well, of course, they are lying sticky side up, and they are self-adhesive. So they are at the moment lying the right way round, viewed from the outside. It's all very, very complicated. So now you can get a rough idea of what it is that I was talking about. These separate little masks slowly put together over the top of the image. Clearly, it is quite a tricky process. Because it is self-adhesive, you can't have part of one mask overlapping part of the other mask, and so therefore I have to make sure that I have cut them accurately so they don't overlap each other, and any spaces in between, of which there are many, as you can see, I will then tape up, as you will see in the next slide. Clearly the image is no longer required because I have finished placing the masks in their correct place, and as you can see, there's a lot of little bits of patching up going on so that there's absolutely nothing showing in between where the masks have not quite joined. That is a time-consuming process, and I'm always really happy when it's complete. The background naturally has to be covered up as well, and I happen to be able to get scraps of vinyl from a sign writer. Well, no longer a writer as they were. They create vinyl signs, and they usually have tons of scrap vinyl and often give them to the schools and that sort of thing. So if you go along to a sign maker, they should have some scrap vinyl, which is very, very useful for this sort of thing. This is an old picture of the side of my sandblaster. You will see in the middle where that electric cord is draping over the top, there's a kind of a panel. That panel comes off. It at the moment is covering the side, the top and the other side. That comes off and reveals an opening that is very tightly knitted with bristles, and also 2 pieces of rubber that come quite close together, but just enough room to squish a large pane of glass down between the two, and also contain the dust that's going to be flying around. It's an amazing piece of equipment, this. And as you can see, warning, very old photograph, because I didn't have a picture of me up to date putting a pane of glass into the sandblaster, but there you go. Here you see now the panel in place. Now what I had to do was cover it very carefully so that none of my very delicate mask got damaged while I was squishing it. I mean, literally, it was brute force and ignorance that I had to summon to get this jolly heavy piece of glass up and slotted into this area. And if I hadn't covered up with very thick paper and carefully taped it down on the edges, all this work would have got totally and utterly squished up. So anyway, once it was in place, I was able to tear away the thick board. In fact, it was the backing from the vinyl I used to cover the background of the glass. So that was very useful. It was quite sturdy. As you can see here, looking a little bit messy because what you are looking at is partly sandblasted panel now. It looks a bit grubby, but it's been perfectly sandblasted down the bottom half, but part of the top half is still half done. You can see how there is a fine film on the APM Plus, and it starts to break up as you begin to sandblast. You may be wondering what the funny little bit of rubber and bulldog clips are doing behind the door of this sandblaster, but in actual fact that is where the piece of glass is sticking out quite a lot, and this door, when I open it, kind of flings open, and I wanted to make sure that it didn't fling open against the glass and crack it. I had to be so careful. There's so many hazards in this business. Here is a close-up of the sandblasting on the inside, and I have to be very careful that I don't over sandblast. You have to be careful that you don't disrupt the vinyl on the edges by getting too close or too aggressive, or staying in one area for too long perhaps and burning it. What I do as well is I count all the time. I pick an area to work on and I count up to a certain number, and then I move on to the next area and make sure that I sandblast with the same number of seconds in my head, because otherwise you end up with areas that are deeper than others. This is very much a manual process. There's nothing automatic about it at all. I don't have a pressure system. I have a Venturi system, so all my pressure is set before I start sandblasting, and that is where I just leave it at. And unless I'm doing some half-tone sandblasting, it just sticks at 50 psi. Perhaps that is low for some sandblasters, but I have a hydrovane compressor, and with this pressure and the way I've set up the system, it virtually never loses pressure. I get my pressure in a matter of seconds of turning it on, and that is it. I can just work and work and work. Here you can see quite clearly how I have started to reach the upper section of the image, but you can see where I've cut off the paper that was protecting the mask as I slotted it in, and you will see also that this nears the top of the sandblaster, and therefore it's not quite tall enough to sandblast the entire image in one go. You can see how parts of the sandblasting is still not even started on the helmet, and what you're looking at is a very that fine film that I was talking about that is still in place. So I complete a little bit more of the sandblasting at this level before I have to take it all out and turn it over. So you can see I was exhausted. It is actually quite hard work and takes a really long time because I'm using the finest grit. The aluminium oxide grit that I use for sandblasting is photo quality, and it just takes a long time, but it is worth it. It absolutely is worth the effort, and it actually cuts in quite well into this laminate glass. So yeah, an exhausted person. I am boiling hot, dripping sweat. The hydrovane compressor is pumping out a lot of heat, and I'm upstairs in effectively the loft of my little workshop, and yeah, it gets quite warm in there. It was necessary, of course, to add some more protective covering to the mask that I still had to sandblast. So there you can see I've rolled it up now in order to get to the area I still had to sandblast. The whole picture being upside down now, and this is the final bit of sandblasting. It is actually quite a lot deeper than I thought it would be. This glass engraved really, really well. And now for the fun part, removing all the vinyl and the tape and the masks, and slowly cleaning up the entire panel. Obviously it's quite sticky, and I have my own little secret, well, hardly a secret, I'm sure it's widely used to remove all the tapes, but I'll show you in a moment. As you can see, the vinyl slowly coming off. I'm doing this sitting on the floor. It's just much easier, plus I've got hardly any room in my workshop, but on the floor it's nice and sturdy, and I can just slowly get through it with the music on. Of course, I can't use hot water like I would if it was, normal glassware and easier to handle, and I can take it downstairs and put it in the basin. But of course, I can't get any hot water to it, so that is the tricky bit. However, never fear. I have my secret weapon, and it is a very, very old hairdryer. Clearly, one has to be quite careful not to spend too much time with the high heat and get too close to the glass, because we don't want to crack it at this stage, or any stage for that matter. Yeah, it certainly works very, very well. Silly me. That's my smoking gun. Basically, what it does is soften, very quickly softens the vinyl and makes it incredibly easy to peel off. It almost half melts it in a way, but that's why, as I say, you don't want the glass to get too hot. So I move it around quite a lot and keep coming back to areas, and but that way it makes the whole process so much easier. So here the whole front has been cleaned up, and as you can see, there's still some color floating around, and this is because the entire back of the panel is also covered in vinyl, and there you see different colored scraps of vinyl, and so I have to remove all those. The reason why I have that there, of course, is because I do not want the glass to be scratched, and certainly while I'm pulling it in and out of the very, very tight fitted area in the sandblaster. So here is the glass now on my tabletop. I've left parts of the vinyl around the edges, obviously to protect them, but also to protect me, because they are very sharp. They're completely ungrounded, and yeah, anyway, that can all come off right at the end. So now, of course, I'm ready to hand engrave. You can see I've already started on the left hand side, where you'll see some variations. You will also notice that I have covered the rest of the glass, the background of the glass, with an industrial cling film, and this is really good because I need my burrs, you can see them on the right hand side of the screen, I need them close to me, just because I do. I like to work quickly, and I have got everything well protected so that I can place them on top of the glass. Of course, for this process, I am using diamonds, stones, and rubbers, and I am shading, I am highlighting, but what I'm also doing is keeping things really bold. I'm working dry because I want the diamond work to really stand out, be quite rough, without being ghastly and chippy, but it's really rough. It's the roughest I can get the engraving to be, and it picks up the light so well. And as you can see, I've like highlighted the edges, and because that area is not actually completely white, what is white is the whiter area in the shield, and you can see that I have gone over that by hand and made it as white as I possibly can. And except for the little squares in the middle, you can see the difference in tone because those are sandblasted, and the darker areas are actually I've used a very gritty rubber to give them that very soft tone. You can see here how quite rough the engraving is, really catching the light. And you can see how I've taken a rubber over the darker shaded areas of the large leaf effect, and without being too fiddly and faffy, because it needs to be bold. It's been viewed from far away, and nobody will see anything that is really small. I want effects to stand out as much as possible. So here is the finished piece. What I did with the photograph was actually flip it over, because I photographed it on the engraved side, simply because the reflection, as you can see, everything is reflecting. I had to do this photograph in quite a bit of hurry, and so the image was not the correct way round because it's the engraved side. So what I've done for this final image is simply flipped it over so that you are now viewing the coat of arms the correct way round. Okay, so I hope that was informative for you. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you were looking for a signature, here it is. Yes, well hidden, and yeah, one day someone might climb a ladder and have a look and see if they can find a signature. Who knows? Okay, but you can see how simple it all is. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Bye for now.